Peterson coming from the Andy Reid coaching tree. Andy Reid obviously once upon a time coached Donovan McNabb and ended up getting the most out of him. For them to have taken Hurts at that point in the second round, I think they could have probably waited another round to take him. I think it was a little too high. But yeah, so it's interesting what they did because, again, I'm expecting Carson Wentz is not going to play a full season. I am expecting Jalen Hurts at some point will play. And if you take a quarterback that high, you anticipate at some point he's going to play sooner than later. Maybe not this season he becomes a starter. Maybe next season he becomes a starter.
Oh, so you're saying Wentz to the bench in 2021?
I'm not saying to the bench, but they just gave him a lot of money. And if you can't play a 16-game season and you're making that much money in the NFL, I'm just saying the writing is on the wall.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think they reached for Wentz, especially, you got Fromm. He went later on to the Bills, and Eason, he went to the Colts. We'll see if Eason becomes the Colts quarterback at some point. And, of course, the Patriots, they signed Brian Lewerke as an undrafted free agent at quarterback. So a lot of quarterbacks there, but they wanted Hurts. That was their guy. They got him. I do agree that the Eagles did need to address the backup quarterback position, but I agree with you that they reached there on getting Hurts in the second round, especially when you have a guy like, Jameis Winston, who is probably going to sign a one-year deal here with the Saints that is available as a backup. So interesting stuff there. And, speaking of quarterback news, Jay Cutler and Kristen Cavallari announced that they are getting a divorce. Any surprise there?
No surprise. Yeah, I think she said in her Instagram post that they had 10 happy years together and that they just decided to move on. Anybody who watches their show is going to be disappointed, I bet.
I mean, I think Jay Cutler hated doing that show, and I wouldn't be surprised if
I wouldn't be surprised either.
All right. But the pick that I like the most, and this is the guy, here's my pick for, I don't know about Rookie of the Year, but one of the breakout rookies is going to be the guy that went in the 9th pick in the second round, and that's Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin to the Colts.
Oh, I love that.
When Phillip Rivers is at his best, he's got an amazing running back. Look, LT and then Melvin Gordon, and I think they're going to really implement him very well into that offense with the Colts. And watch out for the Colts because I think they're the favorites in the AFC South. No doubt about it.
I totally 100% agree with you. I love Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin. He's been one of the best players in the country, not just running backs. He's been one of the best players in the country for 3 seasons now. I think he's going to be an immediate impact player from day one. I think if he gets the bulk of the carries in Indianapolis, like let's say he gets 250 carries and Marlon Mack gets pushed to like that 1B backup duty, you could easily see Jonathan Taylor running for over 1,000 yards in his rookie season. I thought this was an amazing pick, an amazing fit. That Colts O-line is tremendous. It's one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL. And I think, although Jacoby Brissett was not bad last year, even at this point of his career, I still think Phillip Rivers, even though his arm strength has deteriorated a little bit, I still think he's an upgraded quarterback. I totally agree with you. I think the Colts are definitely the favorites in the NFC and the AFC South. I could easily see them winning 10 or 11 games and winning the division.
Absolutely, and Rivers, big upgrade this year. I actually think, I don't know if it's after this season or the next, but I do see Andrew Luck come out of retirement at some point, so that's just me, but I think Rivers is a big upgrade over Brissett. And the other interesting quarterback news was Taysom Hill got a 2-year extension with the Saints. He's one of the most interesting quarterbacks there is in the league, and that's why they're trying to sign Winston so he could be the true backup like Bridgewater, and then they could give Hill in the Wildcat offense. And the other news in the NFL was that the Patriots didn't draft a quarterback, and then that was not really by design. But we'll see what the Patriots do. It looks like they're going to stay put with what they got, unless, of course, maybe they decide to sign Cam Newton. Could it be, Joe, that Cam Newton does not get signed for this season?
So I was kind of puzzled that New England didn't take a quarterback because I don't really think too much of Jarrett Stidham. And I do think what you mentioned with Cam Newton and the Patriots, where there is smoke, there is fire. if you looked at the Vegas odds a couple of days ago on the Patriots to sign Cam Newton, I think you were getting like plus 150 or beyond, right? Now the Patriots are the minus 190 betting favorite to sign Cam Newton. So there's a little something there. And I think the fact that the Patriots and Belichick put that information out there, that not drafting a quarterback wasn't by design, I don't think they really like what they have, and I think they'd be willing to roll the dice on 1 or 2 years of Cam Newton, just kind of using him as a stopgap and a bridge to wherever they find their next quarterback. I could see it happening.
We shall see. The other thing with the Patriots was that James Devlin announced his retirement from the NFL today, and I just want to take a moment here to think about him and John Kuhn, who were like probably the last two true fullbacks we're going to see in this league for a long, long time. And, Joe, it's just crazy how the league has totally changed, and you don't even see a fullback on a lot of rosters anymore. And these two guys had incredible Pro Bowl careers at the fullback position.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you're going to be a back, you need to be able to catch the ball. You know what I mean? Like the days of using fullbacks as lead blockers are now over because now teams are just stocking up on backup offensive linemen and then using offensive linemen in those types of packages and those types of plays around the goal line. So, yeah, you're right. The fullback is going away. Teams don't really use the fullback anymore. The Patriots were really the last team in the traditional sense to use a fullback. Not most of the time, but just use a fullback more often than not. So, yeah, it's different times.
And the other thing, just to note from the draft, was Thaddeus Moss signed as a free agent with the Redskins. We'll see how that works out. I don't know if he's going to be quite as good as his father, Randy, but he's a big target there nonetheless. And Joe, how do you think, this is going to be a weird offseason. There's going to be no rookie mini camps. There's going to be no OTA. Maybe you get an abbreviated overall camp in August. So is it going to be tough this year to see all of these rookies basically come in and start, especially at the quarterback position like we've been seeing the last 4 or 5 years where, week one, they're the starter. We might not see that this year. I think Fitzpatrick's probably going to start for the Dolphins because they're worried about Tua's injury. So put that aside. I could see Tyrod Taylor starting for the Chargers. That wouldn't surprise me. Andy Dalton, maybe he starts week one and two for the Bengals. But overall, I think it's going to be really hard for these rookies to adjust this season for week one.
Absolutely agreed. I also think this is going to affect the wide receivers because wide receivers not only need to learn the playbook and learn other different route trees and combinations, but they also need to build rapport with their quarterbacks. And if you don't have those offseason workouts and you don't have those training camps and you don't have those practices leading up to the season, then it's just going to be so hard to find chemistry. As opposed to the running backs who, if you have a good offensive line, and we just mentioned this before with Jonathan Taylor, and another team is the Lions, who took DeAndre Swift in the second round. Those running backs will be much better off and be able to plug and play immediately, as opposed to just the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. And this draft didn't really have any great tight ends, but you understand what I'm getting at. So.
All right, moving on. Joel Ward, he announced his retirement from the NHL. I know you're a big Joel Ward guy, but overall, NHL, it seems like they're moving toward maybe like a 4-city plan here if they come back, and Bettman's looking to finish the regular season, which would be good for the New York Rangers because they would hopefully be able to make the playoffs, and I think Chris Kreider would be back, and I do think they should just have Miller just come up and play because there's no point in not using him while he's under contract. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be very, very hard for Miller to just step right in right after the layoff. But, I think we mentioned this before on a previous podcast. I think he's just his talent level alone and his young legs just give them much better jolt than they have right now existing on the roster. And so there are a few teams that benefit from the fact that the NHL would rather start from the regular season and then finish out the regular season into the playoffs, and the Rangers are one of those teams. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of plan they enact, what cities are used, how many games there are, so on and so forth, because I don't know if they're going to finish out all the regular season games, but I think it's possible, given the information that we have, that the regular season will probably conclude in a 2 or 3 week span, which likely means we're getting 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, which is better than nothing. You know what I mean?
Could be good for you at work as well.
Yeah, great for me at work. Gives me the extra days.
Yeah, so we want to see the NHL. I mean, right now we'd be in the thick of things with the playoffs, which is it's kind of sad. But ultimately, this might benefit the Rangers, especially when you're looking at Chris Kreider.
Right.
And the NBA came out and they said, we're going to open up facilities for cities where there is no bans anymore, and we're going to let you come in for individual workouts. I think this is a bad idea because it gives places an unfair advantage. Because and I think Mark Cuban, he was kind of against this too. He's like, I don't know if this is necessarily going to be safe, and I doubt they're going to be able to see these teams in California come back and start training, whereas maybe the Denver Nuggets could benefit because they're going to, hypothetically be able to get in there and open. So I think it's a bad idea to open up just wherever you are. I think it's got to be an all or nothing approach.
Right. I do agree with that. I think it's got to be an all or nothing approach. And so I mean, Cuban he's always vocal and outspoken when it comes to stuff like this. He's certainly a trailblazer in his own sense. We have to see what the NBA does, because I think that we saw the NBA make the first decision, and I think it's kind of going to be like that again. I think once the NBA dictates what they want to do, then I think you're closely going to see Major League Baseball and the NHL follow suit.
So what's the Vegas odds now for the first sport back on the field?
That I don't know. I got to check into that.
I would say I think it's probably going to be baseball. I really think they're going to just go ahead with this plan, try to capitalize on the fact that the other leagues aren't open, and it comes out originally this week that a lot of teams are going to try to pay their employees for the season. And now the Padres are like, we're going to try to not do that. And it sounds like the Mets are going to try to jump in on that plan. Now there's a whole issue with the players union and the owners, because the owners don't want to pay the players as much because there's not going to be fans in the ballpark. So it's really messy and it could get really dirty here. But I do think that for the most part, baseball's in a good spot as far as they're up ahead of this thing with their Arizona plan, and it's just going to be really interesting to see how the pieces come into place. Now they're saying, maybe we'll start our spring training games next month. That'd be a good sight to see. But I do think that for the MLB season, NBA season, NHL season, and likely the NFL season, we're not going to see fans in the stadiums for the rest of this calendar year.
Right. So I was researching this, right? So as of right now, just 29 of the 91 NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball teams are paying their third-party stadium workers on top of the information that we have about teams paying their already existing full-time employees. So we still have a way to go. At some point, though, I think all the teams are going to follow suit, and there's going to be a continuous domino effect, because the PR and the perception of the league, if one team does it and another team does it, or one team does this and another team does that, you don't want to be an organization right now that doesn't do the right thing in this climate. Like, for example, the Yankees and the Mets are a great example of this. I think the Mets are paying their full-time employees, and I don't think the Yankees right now have something in place. So we live in bizarre times, because if I would have said something 2 months ago, you would have said the Yankees are probably likely going to pay their employees and the Mets aren't. But it's the other way around, And as a huge Yankees fan, I hope to see them eventually put a plan together to